What I wanted to say is that clearing Ultimate for the first time is like some of the best feelings I felt playing like any video game ever. Like unironically, it's so good. When I cleared UCOP for the first time, I popped the fuck off. You have to understand, right? So my experience with UCOP is kind of like a long one. Okay, story time. When Ultimate came out at first, I don't think most people were taking it seriously. Or I guess rather before it even came out in the first place. Because the thing about Ultimate was that they're like, yeah, we're gonna make one fight that's really hard. And before Ultimate came out, our raid tiers were Alexander the Creator and Deltascape, both of which were pretty easy, right? In fact, those are some of the easiest raid tiers we've ever had. And I think off the back of those, they're like, oh, you know, like what's the worst they can do? Like Brute Justice? I don't know. How are they gonna make a really difficult fight? And then UCOP comes out and like, I was one of those people. I was like, how can they make one fight hard? I think almost verbatim what I said to one of my friends before it came out when we were talking about our expectations. I said, dude, there's no way people aren't gonna clear within like 2 days. Could you imagine spending more than 2 days on a single fight? Like, if it's really hard, maybe like 3 or 4 days. I believe UCOP took 13 days to clear. So yeah, I really ate my words there. But like that was how people really viewed the fight. And then I went in there and I pugged a bit of Quintania and it wasn't too bad. And I enjoyed it. And then basically I ended up trying to find a hardcore group and I wasn't really able to find one because at that point I had no hardcore experience. So whenever I applied to hardcore groups, they would either they would just ghost me, or they would basically say like, oh yeah, you know, we're looking for people who have more experience hardcore raiding. So I was kind of shit out of luck. So I actually spent a lot of time in Party Finder. And I'm not gonna go into detail about every single group I was in, but basically, if I remember correctly, UCOP came out in October. And I think I legitimately pugged UCOP for like 6 or 7 hours a day every day for like a month. I would just be sitting in Party Finder waiting for people to join. I was in college at the time, so like I had a lot of free time, but like the pug scene for UCOP was so small because the fight was so hard and people weren't prepared for it. So you would get like the same like 20 or so people progging. Well, the problem was like some of the people were just not very good, like no offense. So like sometimes your group of 8 for the night would just never get past nail because one of the pugs you got wasn't great. And like different people were better at different things. The thing about pugging is that you aren't used to each other's movements and nail, and like this was way back, right? Way back, people didn't understand nail as well. I don't think, at least at my skill level, which wasn't very high, we didn't know how lightning was assigned. We didn't know that everyone gets 1 lightning and 1 doom. We didn't know that you can get 3 fires and like have an extra layer of safety. We didn't know that Iron Chariot snapshot was like right before she starts moving. Like all that stuff that we all know now and veterans can tell you, that's like common knowledge. We all had to figure that out ourselves back then. And I think what that meant was that we didn't have the luxury of messing things up as much as we do now, in addition to the fact that it's easier to recover now. But back then, if you died too many times in nail, you would actually enrage. And also not being in a group meant that like people did things slightly differently. They moved slightly differently, right? You are more likely to clip someone else with lightning, especially the last lightning, because you didn't know how people were going to dodge the doom puddle or like do the fire or like move for their lightnings. And because you had less leeway, you would just die, right? And man, I think I was on Quick March Blackfire prog for a long time. Eventually what happened was we tried making a group. Like what ended up happening was that the people who pugged a lot tried to make a static together. Like that point, you're like, okay, we play with mostly the same people. Let's just make a group. We ended up doing that. And our raid schedule was, I shit you not, it was 7 hours a day, every day. And we started doing that schedule mid-November and we cleared December 21st, I think. So I raided for 50 hours a week for like 6 weeks to clear UCOP. Like that's how much time I put into that fucking fight because it was just so hard for us. Like my group was not good. The players I played with, nowhere near as good as any of the players I play with now. And like, I'm not trying to like insult them or anything. They were just not good. We needed the time to get further. There was also a lot of recruitment issues. So we ended up making that group, but then, you know, we had a lot of trouble filling like the last slot. People weren't committing. Like people might've been in other groups because a very typical thing was people who pugged also were in other raid groups, but they wanted to pug to get more experience. And it was really hard to fill a group of 8. And we were on, again, like Blackfire Prague. And the thing is, most people who were looking for a group at that point were in Nail. And the reason was, if you think about it, right, those people are from groups that disbanded, right? No person who is in a group that's doing well is going to look for a group. Most of the people who are looking for a group are in groups that disbanded. And most of those groups were groups that underestimated how hard UCOP was going to be and hard-walled on Nail. That's like that was a large amount of groups at the time. So we had very few people to pick from. And we actually ended up recruiting some people that I hated. Like, I really did not like it, but like, I think I was like a pretty different person back then. Like, I was extremely goal oriented. Not to say that I'm not now, but back then I was like, I need to clear this fight. I'm gonna play with whoever I need to clear this fight. I don't give a fuck. If I hate this person, I'm just not gonna talk to them in raid. But as long as they can do the mechanics, that's all that matters. Like, that was my mentality. So we would just recruit whoever we could who was good. And even then, those players weren't very good. Let me tell you a few stories of some of the people we raided with back then. We couldn't find good people, right? And one of our people, our ninja, he would refuse to use food in raid unless we got far enough. Oh no, that was our samurai. Sorry. Our samurai's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna food unless we get to Bahamut. And then he like died to thermostack because he didn't have food. And it was just like, that was like a very typical thing that would happen in our group. Our ninja, like, I was gone. I was a bard man at the time, and I went home for Thanksgiving, so I couldn't raid. And our ninja went to play bard so we could have a different ninja sub for our group. And I shit you not, this ninja on bard died to Iron Chariot and said that the reason he died to Iron Chariot was because he was used to having Ninja's passive move speed buff. So like, when Bard doesn't have that buff, he couldn't dodge Iron Chariot in time. Keep in mind that Bard can literally move wherever the fuck they want. There's no reason for them to be in melee range except for the thermostack, but you can just leave right after the thermostack. It's not like you have to agree to any GCDs. There's nothing to do. So these are the types of people I raid with. I raid with a Dragoon who, to this day, like, he kept saying that, oh, that he was in another group that was on Golden. But to this day, we think he was lying. We don't know if he was lying or not, but to this day, we all think he was lying. We raided with this dude who just wouldn't stop talking about soup. That was weird. Oh, do you guys know the story of Old Bear? The TLDR of Old Bear is that he basically was outed as a groomer, I think. And the reason why he's known in the community was he used to run like a Final Fantasy 14 magazine. Before any of this happened, like before he was outed, he was in my raid group. I raided with him for like a week. First of all, he was an asshole and I did not like him at all. And no one in our group liked him, but he claimed that he had like more experience than us. I think we were on Heaven's Fall at the time. And he claimed that like he was on 10 strike. Eventually he just said that we didn't have enough damage to clear and just left the group after like a week. No one wanted him in the group anyway, so it was fine. Like no one liked him. And then he said he was going to form a group with his other friends like on Ad's face and get it clear, and then that just never happened, and then we like never heard from him ever again. Months down the line, he gets exposed as a groomer, and I'm like, holy shit, well, that guy's a fucking asshole, so I'm not surprised. But I think one last story was the ninja who played Bard and got hit by Chariot. This ninja, eventually we decided to kick him for reasons like the story I told, where basically in general, he can't take accountability or like he can't take responsibility for him messing up, right? It's always something else's fault. It's never his fault. He lagged. He's not used to not playing ninja, or like, I don't know, it's like monitor turned off, like random shit like that. Never ever was like, oh yeah, my bad. So eventually we wanted to kick him. And I do regret this. Instead of just kicking him, we basically we put up a recruitment post that was like, oh, you know, we're a group that's on Heaven's Fall. We've seen 10 strike a few times. We're looking to recruit one person. And then we found a candidate who said they were looking for a group. And this person said that they were on Grand Octet. And I'm sure you guys might be able to see where this is going. That person was the ninja from my group on an alternate Discord account, claiming that they had got to Grand Octet, even though in our group we had only seen Heaven's Fall and 10 strike a few times. So then this ninja, apparently he thought he was in the right because he basically DM'd our raid lead. I wasn't raid leading at the time. He DM'd our raid lead and was like really fucking mad with like screenshots of the DMs being like, what the fuck are you doing? Basically, I don't remember exactly what he said, but the whole thing was that he thought he was in the right. He was really pompous about it. He thought he's like, yeah, I'll get it clear without you guys, etc., etc. And then he quit the group. And fun fact about that story, that guy ended up, I don't think he cleared. He ended up like being the person who made a banner that was like selling UCOP clears starting at like $2,000 or something. because he was like trying to advertise for a group that had already cleared that was doing sales. So that's what he ended up doing after that, which that was really weird to learn about. How did I find a static of human trash? Like, you have to understand, getting a UCOB clear in 4.1, like the patch that came out, was really hard. I don't know, like maybe I got unlucky, but I think no one was prepared for what UCOB was going to be. And like the amount of time you needed for this was ridiculous. Oh, and also another fun thing, our samurai and our raid lead were a couple, and they would just bicker all the time. Like literally for 6 hours a day, I would just listen to our samurai and our raid lead just argue the whole time. And I would just talk to Kyo in DMs. We're just like chatting about random stuff because we're just so tired of listening to our raid team. And actually, when we got to Golden, we had a lot of DPS issues. We actually did, because Golden's DPS check at the time was really difficult. It's harder than any other ultimate DPS check we've ever had. The argument at the time was middle strat versus wall strat. So the two strats were either keep Golden Bahamut in the middle and do exit flare dodges in the middle, or do them at the wall, right? And the thing about keeping in the middle is that it's easier to do good DPS, but it's harder to dodge exit flare. If you drag it to the wall, what the problem we are suffering was that our main tank and our melee DPS would dodge exit flare in different spots. Because they did that, we were losing a lot of DPS. We were having DPS issues, and they would constantly argue about mid strat versus wall strat all the time. They argued so much. We were on Golden for 1 week before we cleared, by the way. They argued so much that our raid lead, she just fucking left the instance, left the party, and left the Discord call in the middle of raid. And then like the rest of the group was just sitting there like, what? And then eventually she came back, and then we continued raiding. But yeah, they argued that much. Because here's the thing, like before we got to Golden, I was the one who decided most of the strats, or at least we decided together. Honestly, like I did a lot of the calls and stuff like that. But when it came to Golden, I was just like, dude, I don't fucking know. Like you guys decide whatever you want. Like it doesn't matter, right? I'm a physical ranged. I do not care. Like you guys should do the strat that you want. But they are unable to decide. I don't remember actually how we resolved it, but we did end up clearing. And I mentioned this a little bit before. This group formed mid-November, and we cleared end of December. And we started at like Blackfire Prague. It literally took us a week to beat Heaven's Fall, a week to get through 10 Strike, a week to get through Golden. 1 week per mechanic. That was our pace. That was how hard UCOB was for us. Oh yeah, we kept messing up Heaven's Fall. And it got to the point, this was actually just a funny story. Our summoner, he printed out diagrams of Heaven's Fall and taped them to his wall so he could look at them when we did Heaven's Fall trio. He was a good guy. I don't even, why did I even start talking about this? I remember now, because I wanted to talk about how fucking good it felt to clear. So think about it, right? This is like, it's mid-December. We're on like Az or Octet. The clear is close. We can feel it, it's close. But my family is going on vacation over Christmas break. We were gonna go away for about a week, and losing a week of progression is a huge fucking deal. You're gonna regress, and you're gonna have to spend time to get back to where you were before, in addition to the lost time of those 7 days of me being gone. And the next patch was slated to come out. It was either end of January or beginning of February. So we were running out of time. If we didn't clear by my Christmas break, we would have like a month to both re-progress all the stuff that we lost and then clear. So there was like this very strong time urgency that we had in the back of our head. And I had basically spent a month suffering all this shit, all these stories I told. That's like, there's more stories that I've probably long since forgotten or aren't as significant as the ones that I told. But so it's like December 21st. I think it's like 2 or 3 days before we're gonna go on vacation. And when we finally clear, I popped off harder than I've ever popped off before. I like jump out of my chair, right? I slam my desk straight down like this, and I slam my desk so hard that my wrist just like hurt for the next few hours. I like repeatedly slammed my desk when we cleared. And again, Golden's DPS check was really hard, right? People were dying to the enrage when we were clearing it. I basically screamed and like slammed my wrist on my desk. And then later I went downstairs, and then my mom was like, did something bad happen? Like, we heard you yell. Dude, I was over the fucking moon. I was like, no, something really good happened. I'm just like, can't control my smile like smiling like a fucking idiot. Basically the adrenaline, I just had to walk around. Like I couldn't sit down. I couldn't like, you know, I can't celebrate. I just have to like walk around and just like bask in like the glory of finally being free from 250 hours of dragon progression and not having to have that hold over my head and to finally actually clear UCOP in 4.1. Like to be one of the, you know, really actually few groups. It was probably the lowest clear rate of anything we've ever seen. The clear rates were really, really low. If you had the legend title at that time, if you had the golden weapon at the time, you wore those. You were proud of that shit. There was no the legend by the way, the ultimate legend by the way, the perfect legend by the way. You know, right now, people clear T, I think like 3 weeks later, they're just like, eh. Back then, you wore that shit for like months. It was, you were the legend. You were like heads and shoulders above everybody else. You would sit in Rhalgr's Reach with your weapon. You would knew that the other raiders in Rhalgr's Reach would look at you and be like, oh shit, that guy cleared ultimate. Holy shit. It was something special that I don't think we'll ever get ever again because I mean, people are just better at the game now. I think people who join the Shadowbringers don't know this, but like back in Stormblood, after UCOP came out, people actually basically said that UCOP was a hyperbolic time chamber. Like people were basically saying, the player base and the raider, like the hardcore, like the higher end raider base, all of them drastically improved because they had to do UCOP. And it was just so difficult that like to get the clear, you had to improve as a player. And that was definitely true for me. That was like my first hardcore experience. Like Deltascape was the tier before UCOP, and I raided 9 hours a week in Deltascape and cleared it in 4 weeks. Pretty typical mid-core stuff. And then I just went hard at UCOP and I improved so much. And then I've cleared every other tier week 1 since then. Except Uwu and T, but those are week 2. I don't know. I think it was a really special time. It was just a very special time, and it's like a time that I hold really dear in my memories. Even though most of the stories were full of pain and suffering for me, I miss that. I miss like going so hard and like having this goal that I'm constantly working towards for months. Like nowadays, doing ultimate makes you a better player for sure. Like nowadays, if you go and clear UCOP for the first time, you clear T for the first time, you clear Uwu for the first time, that's good shit. Like it feels so good. And you have to improve to do that. Like if you start T as your first ultimate, you have to improve to get through Living Liquid and Brute Justice. If you do UCOP as your first ultimate, you have to improve to get through Nail consistently. I think it was a lot more severe past then, back then. With UCOP, it was like leagues ahead of anything we've seen. Like nowadays, at least we have something like Shiva, right? Uwu's still a stepping stone. And UCOP and T right now are not nearly as hard as what UCOP was before. And I'm not trying to say this to downplay anyone's ultimate accomplishments now. Like I just want to give perspective of what it was like back then. It was just in its own league. I mean, obviously it was the only ultimate fight, but it was so legendary. And like inevitably when Uwu came out, people were pretty disappointed in it because it was just strictly easier than UCOP. I mean, it was World First was in like 5 days. I think people even say this now. If I remember correctly, the Ultimate Legend was like, it was like a discount legend title. That's how it was treated. It was like a discount legend. If you used Ultimate Legend, it just meant that you just haven't cleared UCOP yet. At least like, you know, a few months after it came out. It was the value legend title. It was like the Walmart legend title. I mean, it might still be the same way now. And I'm pretty sure the legend by the way meme, but I think it started with Ultimate Legend by the way. Oh, one other story with UCOP, how difficult it was. UCOP was so difficult that there was one team that was streaming UCOP that was very far in. They were a very legendary name. That was 5150. If you know Haru Glory, who, you know, streams hardcore progression now, I believe Haru Glory was in 5150 back then. Although the person everyone watched was Hiroro Moon, who was a white mage back then. I don't remember how many viewers they had, but everyone was following 5150 progression. This was like the first time raid progression was like a huge thing on Twitch. This was the first time, and like a lot of raiders were just watching those streams, just like hoping every time they got the Heaven's Fall. It's like, please get past Heaven's Fall. We want to see what's next. We all want to know what's coming next. This is like, I think when I streamed T and people were like watching, they're like, they want to know what's next from Brute Justice. Like what's after a limit cut? Like you just want to know. Like when I watched Moof, it's like, dude, what comes in Alexander Prime? Guys, please be consistent. Please solve this. I want to know what comes next. The mechanics are really hard. Like nowadays, okay, like you see a trio, right? You see Inception Formation, or you see Temporal Stasis in T. And I think if you're a hardcore raider, you're kind of like, I'm used to something like that, right? We've done UCOB, we've done Uwu. We know what these complicated dance mechanics are like. We all call them trios. I think when UCOB came out, we weren't really used to that kind of thing. At least from my perspective, when we saw mechanics like Heaven's Fall Trio and we see 8 towers appear around the arena in a random formation, like my mind just melted. It's like, what the fuck? How is this possible? What the fuck did they come up with? The idea that you have to get knocked back into your tower and your tower was halfway into the wall was like revolutionary. I can't believe they did something like that. Or like 10 strike, right? You have to have someone else in front of you to intercept your hatch. I think for a lot of like the not cutting edge raiders, that was like, holy shit, that's so hard. I can't give you World Prog perspective at the time because I wasn't a World Prog player, but that's how it felt like to me as like a person who was trying really hard to clear. The reason why I brought this up was, so there was this spreadsheet that was getting passed around at the time. Let me see if I can find it. It was called UCOB Strats Do Not Steal. But basically what happened was when the streams were still on Felruin or Heaven's Fall Trio, the World Prog groups, right, were on 10 strike or Octet. And somehow one of their strat spreadsheets got leaked and I got my hands on it. And basically we were like on Blackfire or like, you know, we had an idea of what Felruin was. And then we're just looking at the spreadsheet. We look at the diagrams for Heaven's Fall and 10 strike and we're like, what the fuck? Like we look at the diagrams for Octet and we're like, what's happening? Is that 8 dragons around the arena? Like what the fuck? Actually, here's a secret. The spreadsheet was called like do not copy. I immediately made a copy of it. And then like 3 days later, the spreadsheet was made private. But I already had the copy of it by that time. So my spreadsheet was the name of my spreadsheet was copy of Ultimate Strats Do Not Copy. And then like my group would use that to understand some mechanics. I mean, it's not like we just went around sharing it, but I think it was just something else. I don't know if the dev team can ever come out with something that will top what UCOB was. And maybe I'll eat my words. I said that before UCOB came out in the first place. I hope maybe one day I'll eat my words. I don't know. It has a special place for me. Oh, one other thing that I remember, after Uwu came out, I was very jaded. The shock of UCOB's difficulty dropping to Uwu's difficulty. Okay, think about Savage, right? Midas is really hard, and then Creator's easier, and then Deltascape's even easier, and then Sigmascape is kind of slightly harder than Deltascape, but not really, right? And then Uwu comes out, and that's easier than UCOB. And my immediate thought is, oh no, they're just gonna come out with easy ultimates now. I was scared. You know, the pattern with Savage was it starts really hard and then they just make easier and easier ones. And I was like, dude, they're just gonna make easier and easier ultimates. And I was really scared that was gonna happen. And then I was like, dude, 3 years from now, Ultimate's gonna be really easy. And then they're gonna have to make a new legendary difficulty that replaces what Ultimate used to be. And then T came out and I was like, oh, okay, actually this fight's sick. Living Liquid's sick. So it was fine. But I was really worried for a moment there. I really was. When Uwu followed UCOB, it was like you had this like very big dichotomy of like UCOB was really hard and then Uwu was pretty easy. UCOB died in 11 days. Uwu died in 5 days. And Uwu died in like, it took longer because of the blind progression woke stuff. If you didn't have to wake the primals, it was even faster. I'm not saying that Uwu is like a lot easier than UCOB, but that was like the perception of the time. So that teams were significantly better going into Uwu, so it was cleared a lot faster, among a few other reasons. But the problem is, even if the faster clear time has reasons that aren't, oh, Uwu is just easier, it has other real reasons that doesn't shift public perspective. All that most people see is, oh, this one was cleared in half the time, so it's a lot easier. Oh, the Savages ended up getting harder too. Alphascape was harder than the other two, but then Deltascape, oh, sorry, that Eden's Gate was like the easiest Savage we've ever had. But then Eden's Verse was like a lot harder than Eden's Gate. And then I would say as a whole, Eden's Promise is harder than Eden's Verse. The victory lap of Ultima is everything with Etheric Boom. That's how you have to think about it. That's the equivalent of Golden. Anyway, I'm really excited for Dragon Song War Ultimate. I'm really excited for it, and I really hope it lives up to people's expectations, which is really hard, but I'm already excited. I see the 3 bosses from the vault standing there in that screenshot. Damn, I need that shit. Okay, all I want is no more Enigma Codex. If I have one thing, Yoshi P, if you watch my stream, if you can hear my voice, there's one thing I want from you for Endwalker, for Dragon Song War Ultimate. for any ultimate that comes. Never, ever create an Enigma Codex mechanic ever again. Please, God. Holy shit. Never again.